You are listening to Keep Canada Weird, a weekly weird news roundup by the Nighttime Podcast.
Handsome Aaron Airport. Hold your drink up. Cheers to you, my friend.
Oh, you don't have your Robbins mug. What's going on with that?
I'm drinking straight out of the can tonight, buddy. We've often started the show by asking what each other is drinking. I don't want to do that tonight.
Oh, really? I've got such a special drink.
What did you have for supper tonight? Anything interesting?
I had pizza.
Ah, it's Tuesday. I had tacos. Taco Tuesday at my house.
Taco Tuesday. Yeah, I get it.
Carved pumpkins, 8 tacos, and I'm drinking Oreo flavored Coke Zero. What do you got in your cup?
I got 7-Up, but I'm wondering what's Oreo flavored Coca-Cola? What's that like?
It's delicious. You don't know about this stuff? Yeah.
No, I've seen the cookies.
Yeah, there's
like the Oreo cookies that have like the colors of Coke on them and stuff.
Well, there's a partnership right now between Coca-Cola and Oreo. So they have Oreo flavored Coca-Cola Pop, which I think is delicious. And then they have Coca-Cola flavored Oreos, the cookies, which are also delicious. In the the Coca-Cola flavored Oreo cookies, what they did to suggest the fizziness of pop is they put, Pop Rocks, those candy, they're mixed in with like the cream filling of an Oreo. So as you're eating it, it's kind of popping in your mouth, almost like drinking a pop. Wow. I highly recommend them.
So does the pop taste like Oreo?
Yeah, it tastes like someone crushed a bunch of like Oreos in my pop. It's delicious.
It doesn't sound delicious.
It's delicious. Trust me. But I want to get into something here. I want to hit reset on this entire show. I'm realizing now, in part due to a voicemail that I'm just about to play, that Diane, the cranky, angry person who brought so much hatred and negativity into our show with her hate mail that led to you getting people to send hate mail about me and blah, blah, blah. It's been on and on. Pat from Peterborough, I think, is about to hit restart on the whole thing for us. This voicemail is going to be the start of, maybe I'll call it a praise parade. What I want to do is be completely positive from now on. Here's Pat being completely positive.
Aaron, it's Pat from Peterborough calling. And I'm calling in the spirit of praise, not hate. I just want to say, you're doing a good job. If you got old ladies calling up swearing at you, and you got women that are married and they're anonymous, but they're attracted to you, I think you're doing a good job. The podcast is at its best when you're getting hate mail, and the podcast is at its best when you're not Googling things. That is all.
See what I mean? When we start the show with like praise and reinforcement that what we're doing is right, I think Peterborough Pat is the wind behind our backs.
The wind in our sails. I just want to say how happy I am to finally hear from Pat after what I would call, some radio silence from him for a while. The last time we heard from Peterborough Pat was when he had called me out for Googling. And then I made a very strong college effort.
A concerted effort.
Yeah, to not Google at all. And it's really kept me on my toes. And I really thank Peterborough Pat for inspiring me to bring this show back to its roots. And that is of complete blindness to the facts. And that's
exactly.
That's what Pat likes about the show. That's what Diane hates about the show. And that mix is what makes this show great.
But all that said, Peterborough Pat gave us the wind behind our backs to push us through this episode of Keep Canada Weird, a show in which we highlight the unique, offbeat, and unusual stories that played out across Canada over the past week. In this week's episode, we got some really good ones. I want to jump right into the first one because this is a story I'm excited to talk to you about. You've heard of rent-evictions, right?
Yeah.
So in Cole's notes, like in the simplest terms, what would a rent-eviction be? Why would someone do this?
Well, basically, it's just a way to get someone out of the apartment. So landlord would renovate the place and jack the rent up and rent-evict somebody.
So that, in essence, is a rent-eviction. But tonight we're going to be talking about something different. I don't know if the term has been coined yet, but I'm going to refer to this as a technoviction. For years, the senior citizens who live at Mont Carmel residence in downtown Montreal have been fighting with their landlord over what they believe are constant efforts to push them out of the building so the rent can be raised for new tenants. The latest stone tossed in this battle was tossed by the building owner, but it's a unique stone. The building is now home to a cashierless 24-hour convenience store where customers must use a smartphone app to enter and a credit card to pay. Here's the story. This is going to be like a self-checkout on steroids. Here it comes.
Il y a personne qui est rentré?
Non, il n'y a personne qui est rentré, non.
Seniors at the Mount Carmel residence on René-Lévesque Boulevard, downtown Montreal, argue that a new convenience store that was opened in the building just weeks ago is anything but.
So I can't get in, that's one thing.
The space, called Aisle 24, is part of a chain of cashierless 24-hour grocery store outlets. Clients need a mobile phone app just to open the doors.
And you need a computer or whatever, because the receipt is sent to you by email. I mean, this is terrific technology, but I mean, it's not suitable for a place like here.
Constance Vautrin argues this high-tech system is making life difficult for seniors who live in the private residence. Many of the elders don't have or aren't adept at using computers and smartphones. It's just the latest friction between the property owner and the elderly tenants. 2 years ago, they took the building owner to court over cancellation of services after the owner purchased the property. A Quebec Superior Court sided with the tenants in 2022. But according to the tenant's lawyer,
the new owner did not respect the court order, and so the owner was found guilty of contempt of court.
That was earlier this year. He says since then, some of the issues have been addressed. However, this new store, seniors claim, is further evidence the new owner wants them gone.
100%, that's really what we think is going on here, because these seniors that have been living there, they're paying relatively low rents compared to what the market rate is now.
This story brings me back to an experience I had many years ago, probably 15 years ago. I was living in an apartment building in Halifax, and the landlords, they changed the washer and dryer in the laundry room. Instead of putting quarters in, you had like a card that you had to load money on online and swipe the card to use the machines is the way it worked. And a group of the residents or the tenants in the building, all seniors, they went door to door knocking on people's doors, trying to like organize a protest to try to get these laundry machines put back to the coin operated ones. And this reminds me a little bit of that, but it also reminds me a little bit of the self checkouts maybe are a bit too complicated for some people narrative. What's your take on this story?
Well, I want to ask you a question. If this type of store weren't in a building that was predominantly, it seems, filled with seniors, if this was just, you were in a building and it was all 20, 30, 40 somethings in the building, and this is the type of store they opened in the lobby downstairs, how would you react to it?
I'd be fine. I don't know. I guess it's like a glorified vending machine. It's self-serve. Mm-hmm. You go in and grab something. It's just like a big vending machine is how I would see it. And it's not like it's a business that's only to be used by the people within this building. It's like, I'm sure it has a little storefront on the street so people passing by can use this walk-in vending machine, as I'll call it. So I don't know. I don't have strong thoughts about it.
Yeah, I think I'd really enjoy this. The fact that it would probably be, 24 hours. It would be probably quite convenient, but I can see the issue that the seniors have with it, and I can sympathize with that. So I mean, how do they prove the motive that this landlord is trying to push these people out by including more technological services in the building?
This landlord, he probably just wants stuff in the building that's going to make him money. I don't think he's like, I know what will get these seniors out. I will make a convenience store that's too complicated for them to use. It just
Yeah, it's a very expensive way to very slowly drive out the seniors over years and years and years of them getting frustrated with the new technology. So I just find that narrative just to be confusing and lacking in any kind of substance
Mhm.
in this story. Yeah, like you say, it sounds like, the court issues anyway, were kind of going deeper than just this particular convenience store or whatever other services that the landlord brought in. But I think this landlord is naughty. I think there's a bad landlord.
And you think that unrelated to this self-serve convenience store?
I think it's unrelated because a 24-hour cashierless convenience store makes complete sense no matter what your situation is. So now you don't have to worry about labor and staffing and all of these headaches that come along with having a convenience store in your apartment building. So this thing is
Yeah.
just runs through an app, and you download the app. You can access the store 24 hours a day, and you don't have to worry about all of the other issues and headaches that come along with that. So I think that's just a reasonable, smart thing to do.
Yeah, I think it's I feel bad for seniors as because everything is getting more technological. Like now, even nowadays, you need a cab. Can you even call somewhere and get a cab?
Yeah, you can still. Oh yeah, you can still call and get cabs everywhere.
Okay.
A lot of people use Uber, obviously, in areas that have it, but
What about full serve gas? You full service gas where you pull your car up and someone comes over and pumps it.
I mean, I really enjoy when I do see one of those. The rare time I see a full service gas pump, I'll use it because it's really nice, but you do pay more for it.
Hmm. And are
So
you okay with self checkouts?
yeah, I love self checkouts. They're
Okay.
fast, convenient. A lot of times you avoid the lines, and so, yeah, I love self checkouts. My goal is to get in and get out as quickly as possible. And if ringing my own items through is the cost I pay for that, then so be it.
And not having to small talk sometimes. People often say like, they talk about the self checkouts and say things like you're working for free or like, can I also go in the break room and heat up my coffee in the staff microwave? These sorts of things.
Yeah,
But
where's my employee discount?
But if you follow that thread far enough, are you not also working by like going in and collecting your stuff and bringing it up to the front? Because you could do like curbside pickup too.
Hmm.
So it's like, why is the checking it out the only part of the whole thing that's work? I don't know. I don't agree with it.
You don't agree with self checkouts?
I don't agree with the I don't work here, so I don't use this self checkouts narrative.
Oh, well, a lot of people's argument with self checkouts is that they claim that they're taking away jobs from
Yeah.
people. So out of protest, they do not use the self checkouts, um, which I don't really agree with because I think that that's first off, a lot of self checkouts still have a staff member or
Heck yeah.
two on them all the time, pointing people to where to go and helping them with the kiosk and everything that goes along with that. But the staff that aren't up at the registers can be used elsewhere in the store to help make the store more efficient, is the idea of it. I'm not saying that every store that has self checkouts honors that, but I will use a self checkout anytime over going through a cashier.
We spent enough time on shopping, checkouts, and technovictions. I want to move on to animals.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, I'm all for that as long as it's positive and healthy.
No one gets hurt, no animals get hurt, no one feels uncomfortable.
I don't care if people get hurt, but if animals get hurt, then our positive turn that we're taking here with Keep Canada Weird will start to waver.
I will tell you before we get to it, people do get hurt in the next section.
Okay, that's good, actually. I like that.
Okay. Well, let's take a quick break. We'll come back with two tales of animals. Well, actually, no. One tale of animals and one tale of a ton of insects.
Oh.
So, Aaron, I got an email earlier today related to a story that we missed 2 years ago. But the reason that our correspondent Jennifer shared this story is when we were covering the rat infestation in Canada, it reminded them of something that happened in their area. A similar situation played out in 2022 in North Bay, Ontario, except instead of rats, it was flies and awful smells that infested the neighborhood. The source, instead of a hoarder in a townhouse, it was a butcher shop that went out of business. And it seems when it went out of business, the owner just walked away, leaving a building full of meat to rot for years. Here's that story. You excited for this one?
Oh, yeah.
Well, now we'll go to North Bay, where a closed meat shop is causing some frustrations. Residents living nearby, as well as the city, say the smell and the amount of flies inside the building have become unbearable. It's called Bavarian Meats, and now neighbors are hoping that the owner will come clean it up. More tonight from CTV's Jamie McKee.
Flies cover the inside of windows at Bavarian Meats, and residents living nearby say the stench from the building is unbearable.
Well, it's been quite bad with the smell, and the flies are terrible. When you open the door, house flies come in, and the smell, if the wind's coming from across the street, it's bad.
We got together on Father's Day. My parents live on Wallace Road, directly across from Bavarian, and we went to sit out on their backyard where they have a beautiful little bit of country in the city, and the bugs drove us crazy, and we realized, oh my God, the smell was obnoxious. We couldn't sit outside.
The meat shop shut down last fall, and now people in the neighborhood are wondering who's going to clean up the mess. City Councillor Tanya Vraybosch says it's a unique situation that doesn't have an easy solution under any municipal regulations.
It was a very unique civil matter that nobody has jurisdiction to just go into a private business or dwelling, right, without cause. And so there was no building code issue. There was everything that we tried was not working. It's now to the point where we're saying, shame on the owners, go and clean it up.
The city put up a notice on the Bavarian Meats building under the Clean Yards bylaw. It states that the garbage bins have a terrible odor and that the building smells because of what's believed to be rotting meat. As for the neighbors, they would like to see the property cleaned up.
The longer it stays, the longer that meat rots in there, the worse it's going to get.
It smells and it's absolutely disgusting because nobody should have to deal with a neighbor like that.
The property is up for sale for just over $1 million, and CTV did reach out to Bavarian Meats for comment but did not hear back in time for broadcast.
So with that story with the rat infestation in Canada, the horror moment was when we were hearing the rats in the walls actually screaming. In this, it's just the image of just flies just swarming in and around this building of rotting meat with the stench just flowing through the neighborhood. This is so disgusting and disturbing.
Oh, it's awful. It's just, I've harped on property owners on this show in the past about leaving abandoned properties for, rodents and animals and God knows what else to overtake it. And it just brings down all the property values around it. And that just makes everybody's life in that neighborhood just unpleasant.
And the smell of rotten meat is so gross too. Like I don't know if this is gross to say, but it's like you cook meat at home in like the little tray that the meat comes on from the grocery store. You throw that in your garbage can. It's like even the next day, if you don't like take your garbage away, like it smells bad. And the idea of like a building full of this stuff, and it's also the building had no power, so they had fridges and freezers full of meat that were unpowered. So it's just disgusting.
How can they expect anyone to come in and pay over $1 million for this property, which is what they had it listed for, when they left all of this rotting meat and disaster zone on the inside? For like no one's going to want to buy it. Like, wouldn't you, when you're closing the place up and you're like, we're going to sell it, maybe we should take all of the meat out of it, clear anything that could be rotting out of it first, tidy the place up, and then put it on the market. But they just walked away from it, left everything in there, and then expect someone's going to pay $1 million for it.
We have an update to the story though, because again, this all takes place. Like it went from 2021 to 2022. But just for people who want to hear the outcome of this, it is all settled now. If you have your notes there, Aaron, there's an article by a site called baytoday.ca that provides kind of the latest news in this story. It's about the actual cleanup of the building, if you want to read it.
Sure. Crews are gearing up to tackle the mess left behind at the former Bavarian Meats on Wallace Road, a building infamous for its rotting meat, maggots, and flies. Neighbors have endured the stench since fall of 2021 when the butcher shop closed, and the infestation has only grown worse with the passage of time. A Winmar restoration team entered the building last week in a full hazmat gear to begin prepping for the cleanup, using a generator to power equipment in the building that's been without electricity. Their plan includes freezing the decayed meat to make its disposal easier, a much-needed step as workers have reported swarms of flies emerging from freezers inside. Ugh, gross. One of the crew members who has been inside the building this week remarked that a swarm of flies that flew out when a freezer door was cracked open was unlike anything I've ever seen before. Winmar has notified neighbors that odors will be strong during the process and advising locals to keep their windows and doors closed. After months of inaction, the cleanup is a relief, but locals remain wary, hoping for a final solution to the foul mess they've endured for far too long.
This is disgusting. This is kind of like our Halloween special, this specific story.
Yeah, it's a horrific image. Like, you've seen that image in horror films before where it's just like thousands of flies, like you can hear them, like, so you know there's a dead body nearby or something rotting. Like, it's just a sign of rot and horror. It's just swarms of flies.
In a butcher shop anyway is kind of a creepy spot. Imagine going in there, you're in full hazmat gear, looking through your little like glass screen or whatever on your helmet, going through a dark butcher shop where there's just flies everywhere, and you go into this back room, grab the door of like a walk-in freezer, and as you slowly open it, as soon as it cracks, the flies, like a blanket of flies, just come out of it. That's a horror movie for sure.
It reminds me of like a movie about the apocalypse, like a zombie movie or something, where it's like maybe several years since the world ended or whatever happened.
Yeah, Walking Dead. This is like a Walking Dead.
Yeah. And then you go into a restaurant scavenging maybe for some dented soup cans, and that's the kind of scene you come across. Is like this rotting food that's been rotting for years now, and flies everywhere, and it's just disgusting. So the neighbors, I can't imagine living next to this and just kind of watching this play out over an extended period of time, and everything you're doing, contacting, city officials and trying to do the right steps. It just doesn't get you anywhere. And you're just like, what's going to happen here?
Yeah. And it's a terrible story. I'm glad it's over. Let's move on to, actually, we need a palate cleanser because this is so gross. I need a palate cleanser before we can get to the next story. Let's hear from Keith from Stewiacke. Stewiacke is a place just outside of Halifax. Keith took a visit to Robin's Donuts, who we haven't mentioned yet today. This is probably a record for the longest we've gone without mentioning. No, you mentioned it.
I did because I mentioned it right off the top, like I try to do every episode now.
Okay, well, Keith went to Robin's in Stewiacke, and he wanted to give us a review.
Hey, Jordan. This is Keith. I thought I'd relay my experience today at a local Robin's Donuts in Stewiacke. Me and my girlfriend like to go to Robin's Donuts for peach juice. We're not coffee drinkers, but they offer other drinks such as peach juice. And it's like the old peach drink that Scott's Burn Dairy in Nova Scotia used to sell, if you are familiar with that. Anyway, we went through for our peach juices through the drive-thru, and I had my dogs in the car. And the friendly staff at Robin's leans out the window, and the person that had taken our order and we're about to pay said, "Oh, what lovely, handsome, and beautiful dogs," because I have two. And she said, "Would You like a couple of complimentary robin's eggs for them?" And I said, "Sure." So she passes them out. In all my time going to Tim Hortons, I've never been offered a complimentary Timbit. And the times I've taken my dog to the drive-thru for 2 Timbits, I've had to pay for them. So just thought I'd pass that along. Go Robins.
The dog. I don't know if you could hear the dogs barking in the background. That was a nice added touch. I've often thought that was something that all coffee shops did. Like if you're going through the drive-thru, they'd have like a little dish of something that they give to like dogs in the back seat. To not do that seems cruel, but I'm glad Robin's Donuts didn't miss this opportunity to make Keith happy and his dogs happy too, I'm sure.
Robin's makes the world happy.
One peach juice at a time. But let's go on to the vicious turkey that's wreaking havoc in Ottawa. A bully has been terrorizing an Ottawa neighborhood, and it's not what you'd expect. A feisty turkey has been laying a trail of havoc across the community, charging at people, pecking at cars, and even intimidating delivery drivers. While some residents enjoy the daily turkey shenanigans, others fear the situation could escalate. Here's the story of the vicious turkey in Ottawa.
Not even a horn will scare off this turkey.
Go! I've used an air horn, but that just made him more angry. He came towards me instead of going away.
Marcia Ellis and other residents of a River Ward neighborhood say a wild turkey has become a problem.
He's aggressive. He comes right at you, and sometimes pointing his beak at you. I hadn't been there on the receiving end until 3 weeks ago on garbage day. And then I tried to leave in my car, and he round around the car and right in my face, picking stuff off my car.
She's going to try and leave in the house with an umbrella for protection.
So this guy's big. He's probably about this tall with the top of his head.
He'll chase people if they start to run, but he doesn't attack them.
Ern Snyder has had to help courier drivers, too scared to get out of their vans.
So I walked over and he opened the window and he pointed to the turkey. I said, no, there's no problem with the turkey at all. But he wasn't quite sure, so I pushed the turkey away.
Still, he looks forward to the daily turkey visits in his yard. They eat the leftover seed from his bird feeders.
And when the birds knocked off the seeds, they would come and eat there. But it can be a little bit disconcerting for people, particularly if you're walking with children and the tom comes up to you or starts to approach you.
The male turkey and his family, known to many in the neighborhood.
Usually they're not very aggressive, but one time I'm trying to pull my car out and I think they see the reflection in the car. And they go up to the car, they try pecking at the car.
Feared by some, embraced by others.
Absolutely. We consider them the mascot of our street, it's a welcome to see them in our backyard.
The councillor for the area has heard the concerns.
Like all wildlife, it's important not to feed them, to basically keep your distance. But also in a case where a turkey is being aggressive, you want to assert your own authority. Whether it's if you're doing gardening work, watering them with a hose, if you have a whistle, waving your arms.
He says the city has no plans to remove the turkey.
The city's position always with wildlife is to leave it alone.
I love that story.
Mm-hmm.
I have so many parts from that clip that was my favorite. I don't know if I'm going to go with my favorite part of the story being like the counselor for the area suggesting like spraying the turkeys with hoses, or the woman who didn't like that she was kind of intimidated because they were pointing their beaks at her.
Yeah, my favorite was the guy talking about the bird seed.
Yeah, he was interested in the turkeys. Overall, though, I don't really see what the problem is. They really had to stretch to find an issue with the turkeys. It seems like one person told a tale of the turkey pecking at their car, and it seems like they even knew what happened. They're like, I think maybe they saw their reflection and they pecked at my car. There was a tale of hearsay. Like I heard from somebody who had to escort a delivery driver who was scared to get out of his truck. And then there was the lady who had a turkey point its beak at her. Overall, it just seems like, the crows in my neighborhood are just as vicious.
Like if the turkey looks at you, its beak is pointed at you. So he's like,
so she's basically saying it looks right at me.
His beak. He's like, I'm going to point my beak at her. He's like, I'm just looking at her. She's like, he's pointing his beak at me. Perverse.
Yeah. This neighborhood needs to hear the prior story we talked about the abandoned butcher shop, because these turkeys seem just fine with me. I would say I'm going to go with the counselor. If it gets too close to you, like spray it with your hose or exert authority. Just put your arms up and just like, get out of here, turkey.
Don't point at me. Don't point your beak at me. As you're waving your arms like an idiot.
There is a slow news day over there. This is like Jim, we need to send you down to a neighborhood in Ottawa. There's a big story playing out there. There's a couple turkeys, a family of turkeys, in the neighborhood, and there's reports of them pointing beaks.
It's got to be something else I can sink my teeth into.
Well, imagine this. This could play out differently. Imagine instead of being sent to investigate the turkeys, they're like, we need you to investigate those donation bins that pop up all over town. They must have a seedy underbelly to the donation bins that are in grocery store parking lots seeking, old clothes. You may think that's a boring story, but after this break, we're going to take a short break. And after this break, we're going to hear about the seedy underbelly and the organized crime network that seems to power donation bins in Canada. We haven't done this in a while, Aaron. We got a duo of Canadian crime stories. Like I said before the break there, the first one relates to donation bins. Oddly enough, a recent investigative report by CTV News uncovered organized crime running rampant in such an unlikely place. Those bins we see in parking lots across the country, of often grocery stores looking for donations. Yeah, there's a dark side to those. You know what I mean by a donation bin, right? Should we explain this?
Yeah, donation bin will be, you'll see them on street corners and various parking lots where it's a donation bin that you can put clothing and household items, whatever they may be.
It's often like a little metal shed, right?
Yeah, or to me, it more looks like a giant mailbox.
Yeah, and you dump in your old clothes or...
Yeah, and it would go to the Salvation Army or some kind of a charitable organization where the clothes would be sold for money to raise money for different causes. They're very good things.
You would think they go to charity. I'm going to play the news clip now. This is just a short excerpt from a recent episode of CTV's W5, which is like an investigative series. They did a whole big thing on donation bins, and it was shocking. Listen to this.
For the city of Markham, north of Toronto, this is a constant battle. City crews removing unlicensed clothing donation bins that seem to pop up again and again. Staff say around 200 times in the past 5 years.
There are many questionable companies that are putting them there.
Former Deputy Mayor Jack Heath says his council was tired of the mess and the disorder, so they identified and removed what he calls rogue bins. Things then took a violent turn. One city staff member was threatened and her tires were slashed.
You shouldn't let people who are making threats, criminal threats, to stop the kinds of initiatives that make for a better city.
It's a con job on the public that's donating.
We met Toronto City Councillor Anthony Peruzza at a bin placed on school grounds without permission.
I did some of my own work and discovered that in most cases, it's not a real charity.
Or even more concerning, a W5 Freedom of Information request shows in the last 4 years, almost 1 in 5 city licenses bear the names of people who have faced criminal charges or are family members of convicted criminals. Bins of people like Pino Sagia, who has drug trafficking and conspiracy to distribute cocaine convictions from the 80s and 90s. He also has a charge from 2013 for smashing in the car windows of a bin industry competitor. He entered into a peace bond as a result. He wasn't listed on the records W5 obtained, but his wife was. She was the director of this charity, whose name is on these bins, but the CRA revoked its charitable status years ago. The city of Markham has removed most of the rogue bins now. Their licensed bins can be spotted by the city logo right on them.
That's shocking to me because I can't imagine how criminals are making money from this stuff. My only guess is that it's an easy way to get truckloads of like used clothes and stuff that maybe they can sell off like by the truckload. Because there would be money in that, right? Like a truckload of this stuff. It just seems like if you're like a shady person, it seems like there'd be easier ways to do shady things to make money than rogue donation bins.
Well, I mean, they could be shipping it overseas somewhere and
And
selling the clothes over there
it just seems
because,
like that's a lot of work for a
but
bunch
I
of
mean, the
used clothes.
inventory's free. And if you have
Yeah,
stores somewhere, like if
that's
there are
true.
stores, then you could be selling this stuff and it's the same, scheme that Value Village has been doing for years now.
Yeah, it's true. And yeah, and if you're cutting a bunch of corners, getting, you'd need some employees because it'd be a lot of work. So you'd have a bunch of minimum wage laborers kind of moving the stuff around, setting up the bins and collecting them. I guess it could be money, but maybe it's just also one of those things where it's like nobody would ever think about it. So you could get away with it for a long time before someone's like, there's a ton of bins around, probably more than we've given out licenses for or whatnot. And, someone complains and they catch on. Like they've probably been doing this for years. And well, actually, clearly they had, because in one of the cases of when CTV did the Freedom of Information Act and request and got all the people who'd apply for licenses or whatever, one of the people had a peace bond against a competitor after like bashing his windows in and stuff. So it kind of sounds like what you hear about I think it's in Montreal. There's a lot of organized crime in like construction or like garbage collection and stuff. And there's like almost like gang wars related to that. It's just weird, the stuff that goes on in our cities that you would never know about.
Well, it's like a lot of these butter thefts as well that you're hearing about
Mm.
recently. We
Uh,
covered one of them on the show a number of months ago, but
It was butter and ghee, like GHEE.
yeah,
It
yeah.
was like a significant theft. But yeah, there's been a string of them since.
Well, yeah, since we covered that, yeah, there's been a bunch. And they say it's all organized crime. So obviously there's
Yeah.
money in these items. There's money to be made, and when you're seeing violence happening around it, that
Yeah.
guarantees you that there's a lot of money involved, because why else would people be getting so upset?
Yeah.
And yeah,
And
used
times are
clothing to
tough.
me, used clothing to me, it's a hot ticket item because people want it. People want to pay
Mhm.
less for clothes, and stores want to get free inventory to sell at a, marked up by 1,000%. And yeah, it makes sense to me. And you can set up a couple of bins. You don't have to really do much legwork either.
Yeah, you
People just
drop them off,
drop
pick
the
them up.
clothes in, and then you check on the bins every now and then, empty them out, and then come back later on and empty them out again, and you have all
Yeah.
these items.
And, and and if anything goes wrong, like the city takes your bin, what are you out like the $50 that like that bin would cost if you buy a bunch of them? Like it's very little risk. And also, what trouble could you get in for doing rogue bins? Like really, what will probably happen is the city will collect your bin and get rid of it. But it's not like these people are going to face any repercussions for doing this.
No,
So
probably not. But yeah, it's
it's
interesting, but it will make me question next time I am going to donate clothes, because every now and then I'll round up a couple of garbage bags filled with clothes
yeah,
and drop
clean
them
out your
off
closet.
somewhere. Yeah, yeah. And I'll definitely pause and think before I just randomly throw my
Throw it in a
used
bin.
clothes
Yeah.
into a bin.
It's funny, just after hearing this story, I never knew this was happening. I never would have expected there was
No.
like crime connected to donation bins. I went to the grocery store. It was a Sobeys earlier this evening, and there was like 6 or 8 of these bins. So it was all these kind of competing charities with bins all next to each other. So there's clearly money to be made doing this if all of these charities are getting involved in this. So yeah, I guess thinking about it now, I'm not surprised that some bad actors would drop off a bin and put the name of some fake charity on it. Weird.
Yeah, the Jordan Bonaparte Foundation.
Yeah.
Yeah, drop
Um,
off all your GI Joes that you don't want, and
if anyone out there needs a closet cleared,
But if you had a piece of land, you're allowed to put a bin up, aren't you?
I'm on my own land, yeah, but I should put a bin on my front lawn.
Yeah.
Just see what happens.
You'll get lots of GI Joes then. You won't have to leave the house to go to Value Village anymore. You'll just have your bin and top of your driveway, and everybody's garbage will be in it. You're like, I don't even wait for garbage day anymore. I just drop my stuff off in Jordan's bin. Just all soiled, spoiled meat.
That would be a weird thing to do, to put a bin for donations on your front lawn or driveway. It would also be weird to drink and drive at work if your job is to work as an ice surfacer. Before we get into this story, is Zamboni a Canadian term, or would the whole world know what that is?
I think the whole world would know. There are ice rinks all over the world.
Yeah, but I don't know if they call it a Zamboni, because I think the actual name for that machine is an ice surfacer. So if you don't know what if you do know, I'm apologizing right now for mansplaining Zambonis. But if you don't know, on a hockey rink or an ice rink, the ice needs to be like smooth for you to enjoy skating on it, I'm told. So what they have is they have this machine. It looks like, I don't know, like a tractor sort of thing, and it drives slowly across the ice. And it like heats up the ice that's directly underneath it. So it kind of like quickly melts and then freezes again. So if there's big scratches or gouges in the ice, it just like makes it all smooth again. I think that's what a Zamboni does. Is that right?
It sounds pretty good. I mean, normally I Google this as you were, trying to explain it, but I mean, obviously I can't do that.
You got to take a stab. I think it uses heat and it just melts and allows the ice to refreeze, and that's how it resurfaces the ice. How do you think it does it? Sandpaper?
Sandpaper? No, sandpaper never crossed my mind. I always imagined it as a magical.
No, don't say, no, you can't say I imagine it. You have to say confidently how it does it.
There are little ice dusting elves on the inside of the Zamboni machine, and they have these magical brooms. And so you can't see them because of Zamboni, but it's basically, it's just like a box, kind of like a donation bin, really.
Mm-hmm.
And the ice elves are inside, and they have these brooms, magical brooms, and they're sweeping the ice as a Zamboni drives. And then there's just an ornament on top of a drunken man who sits on top of the Zamboni machine to make it look like it's being operated by normal human power.
And exactly. And that also explains where the name Zamboni comes from, is because ice elves are from the planet Zamboni. And so we named the machine that.
Yeah, well, it's more of an ancient elf town called Zambonica.
All right, let's move on. The reason we're talking about Zambonis is because there's a crime story related to Zambonis in the news. You read the last one. I'm going to read this one. A Zamboni driver in Western Quebec has been arrested on suspicion of impaired driving after a low-speed crash at a hockey rink on Monday. Police in the region say the 25-year-old man was arrested after he drove the ice surfacing machine into the boards at a rink in Chelsea, Quebec, while cleaning the ice between two games. A 30-second video posted online shows a referee skating alongside the machine and its driver as it heads straight into the boards with a loud crash. Sergeant Martin Fournel of the MRC, which I think is a police force in Quebec, says several people witnessed the event, and one of them called police after seeing signs that the driver was impaired. He says police administered a sobriety test and then arrested the rink employee, who was released on a promise to appear in court at a later date. Police say nobody was hurt, but a door onto the rink was damaged. And I will tell you, I probably got 25 emails about this story.
All from the Zamboni driver.
Yeah, you better not bring me up this week on your show.
Don't show that footage, Bonaparte.
The footage is ridiculous because the Zamboni drives are really slow. So it's like slowly driving, and the referee is skating alongside it, probably pleading with the guy on the Zamboni, like, Jimmy, just get off it. You can't be driving the Zamboni. He continues to drive it right into the boards. And yeah, as the article says, you hear just like, whoa, big crash. And you hear people like kind of like moaning in the background of just like disgust and shock.
Yeah, I don't find it that shocking or just disgusting, really. I assumed all Zamboni drivers were drunk.
Really?
Yeah, why not? You're driving so slow. How can the regular laws of society apply to you?
Yeah, it is true. And you're kind of in a cage because generally when the Zamboni goes out, there's no one else on the ice. So there's the boards that surround the ice surface with the Zamboni driving about 3 kilometers an hour. So it would be like, I don't support or endorse drunk driving in any capacity, but if you were ever going to drunk drive, I think on a hockey rink on a Zamboni would be one of the safer places.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I gotta admit, I kind of feel bad for the guy now that he's been smeared in the media.
Well,
he's just doing his job. When your vehicle moves so slowly, how can you possibly not seek the relief of some kind of a alcohol or a drug to be able to get you through that incredibly boring process?
I think there'd be ways to make it exciting. And the way to make it exciting would be, I don't know, if I was driving a Zamboni, I think I'd hop on it with a coffee from Robin's Donuts. And I would just sit back and enjoy my coffee as I slowly resurface the ice.
Yeah, but then resurface that ice 800 times
Yeah,
and
I
then
know.
see if you're still able to have that kind of excitement from a coffee sitting
not
like the first time I drove a Zamboni, I'd be like, oh, this is cool, but then like 800 times later, I'm like, if I'm not hammered when I drive the Zamboni, then I'm not driving the Zamboni.
I get that. In the live chat of our YouTube live stream, Grumpy Chat says, "If this isn't rock bottom, I don't know what is." Yeah, it's a pretty low point in your life when you get arrested outside of the hockey rink for driving. No, not the arrest would be a low point, but I think doing the sobriety test next to the Zamboni at the hockey rink in small town Quebec, it's a low point for sure. But I have another low point. If we can finish the show with this one, I like to finish the show with a voicemail. Last week, I called out for stories about Halloween costumes, and I did get one, and I think is maybe representative of a low point. But you be the judge of this. This is the story of Heather and her husband's nasty Halloween costume.
Hi, Jordan. I just wanted to let you know about a couple of costumes that my husband and I wore probably about 15 years ago when we went to a friend's party. My husband went as a priest, and I went as a pregnant nun. I had a basketball under my nun's habit, and we thought they were quite funny, actually. So we get to the party, and it turns out that the woman that was having the party was actually good friends with her priest and invited him to the party. So he was there when we walked in, and I think he was quite mortified to see us. So we weren't there very long. Yeah. Anyways, I thought it was funny. He thought it was funny. Don't think the priest thought it was too funny, but whatever. It is what it is.
That costume, a pregnant nun, I don't know if that's salacious. I've seen worse. In fact, you've probably seen worse in the news this week.
Oh God, right. Yeah, that was right down the street from me.
Yeah, because your hometown, and that's like, I think that may even be like international news, what happened in.
Oh, that's all over the place now. Yeah, I've been seeing it on TikTok every second or third, flip that I make through TikTok. It's there.
Let's talk about it for a second there, just because I don't know really what happened. There was some event in North Sydney, Cape Breton, Nova Scotia.
Yeah, at the fire hall.
At the fire hall, and it seems like a group of people went in dressed as. Were they dressed as Ku Klux Klan members, or were they dressed as ghosts that looked like Ku Klux Klan members? Because they have like white pointy hats.
That's the question I asked first as well when I first saw the images of it. I was like, well, they could have been trying maybe to dress up as ghosts, but didn't realize how much they looked like KKK members.
Like it's almost like the most innocent.
One of them was holding a cross.
Oh, okay. Because I was kind of thinking these are just the most innocent people in the world, and that's like they said like, wow, we look like three ghosts. Okay, the cross definitely changes it.
Yeah, so that the cross convinced me that, oh no, they seems like they did intentionally dress up as KKK members, which is, well, how could you possibly think that anyone's going to find that funny, that it's not going to be horrific? And now look what they got themselves into now. You know, I don't know if anywhere mentions their names or who they are, but I'm sure the word is out of who they are. And yeah, they must be just,
Well, you deserve it. If you think that
yeah,
that's like a joke or funny,
I know.
yeah, it's man, your Halloween costume, yeah, it's I would have no advice for someone who's dumb enough to do and just cruel and insensitive enough to make that a costume. But I'm also offended by sexy versions of horror characters.
Oh, really?
Yeah, where
Why?
it's like sexy Freddy Krueger, and it's like they'll take like Freddy Krueger
Oh, Freddy Krueger is the best one to make sexy.
or Jason or whatever, but they'll have like you go to like a Spirit Halloween and there's the boy version, which kind of looks like Jason or Freddy or whatever. Then they have the girl version, which is just like a sexied version of it. I find it so ridiculous.
I don't find it ridiculous. You know, Freddy Krueger is sexy. Jason from Friday the 13th is also very sexy.
But what brought us to this whole topic was Heather's voicemail. Do you think that was a controversial costume? A pregnant nun with a priest?
I mean, if I knew beforehand that there was going to be a priest there, then I might reconsider the idea. But if I was there and then someone told me, "Oh, my friend is here and he's a priest," I'd be like, I'm sure they'll get over it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I don't think it's a huge deal, but it depends. I mean, you got to know your audience sometimes.
Certainly. One other thing before we wrap it up. I don't think I asked you this year if you were dressing up as anything.
I can't reveal what I'm dressing up as at work on Thursday because we have a bit of a costume war every year with another organization that's in our building.
Okay.
And so last year they totally creamed us. Yeah. So this year we've got a very organized, very detailed response to that. And we'll see how it shakes out on Thursday.
Okay. Well, I'm excited. We're recording this Tuesday, the 29th of October. So we're recording this just days before Halloween. I am so excited. I didn't spend any time on my own stuff. In fact, I've been the last 4 days nonstop making a costume for my oldest son, who's obsessed with Five Nights at Freddy's, and he wanted to do like a cosplay, like Five Nights at Freddy's thing. So we built a costume from the ground up, and I spent so much money and hours of sewing and gluing and cutting material, but it's awesome. We're excited to take it out on the mean streets of Halifax and get some candy. I love Halloween.
I love Halloween too. In my new place, though, there's no trick-or-treaters, so I am going to really miss out on handing out Halloween treats this year. That's always my favorite part of Halloween was seeing all the costumes and handing out treats. And I love like making the treat bags and watching a scary movie while I do it. And then after Halloween, I get the leftovers. So I am going to miss that. So I think I might go and just buy a box of Halloween candy just for myself so that it feels like I have leftovers, and then I'll watch a scary movie that way. But
well, I hope you have a great Halloween, Aaron. I hope you have a happy Halloween. But we got to put a bow on this. We've been through a lot tonight. We're turning over a new leaf going forward. Keep Canada weird. We'll embrace positivity. We will not tolerate hate mail from anyone except Diane. She's welcome back. What I would like to hear is some praise mail. I want to lift Aaron up. If anyone out there has anything great to say about Aaron's voice, about his personality, about his love for his cat, Ken Tiggs, go to nighttimepodcast.com/contact and let me know all about it.
yeah, and I would like to see some listeners call in with some very positive voicemails regarding Bust Up Bonaparte's big muscles, his
full head of hair,
his beautiful locks, his long neck, his supple lips, his deep eyes, his earbuds, his plaid shirt.
Okay, you're running out of things.
His curtains in the background.
Handsome Aaron Airport. Until next time.
Jordan, until next time.
Throw away your spoiled meat. Don't be an awful neighbor.
Yeah, and Jordan, until next time, I love you.
Love you too, buddy. I want to thank you for helping Aaron and I fulfill our mission to keep Canada weird. But if any one of you listening want to contribute to our work, we need all the correspondence we can get. If something weird happens in your area, or if you have any thoughts, theories, or opinions on anything we discussed tonight, we'd love to hear from you. But please, no more hate mail. The best way to reach us is by using the voice recorder that can be found at nighttimepodcast.com/contact. We're excited to hear from you. Now, I'm going to start wrapping this episode up, but before we part, I want to thank a few people. First, a big thanks to Aaron for sharing another evening with me and with you, the listeners of Nighttime. A big shout out to Unicole, the internet's favorite cult leader, who provides our intro and outro voiceovers, and Monty Data, who provides the outro version of O Canada. And then lastly, but most importantly, a massive thank you goes out to each and every one of you listening, as without your interest and your support, this show would be impossible. And on the topic of support, a special thank you goes out to the newest premium feed subscribers, Megan, Tara, and Victoria. Thank you for your generous support. And for anyone else out there who wants to support the show that way, a premium feed subscription costs just a couple dollars a month, and that money funds the creation of new episodes. But the premium feed will also give you those new episodes 2 days early, it'll give them to you ad-free, and it will give you access to a full back catalog of all prior Nighttime episodes. If that sounds like something you're interested in, you can go premium right now at nighttimepodcast.com/subscribe. And if the premium feed isn't for you, but you still want to support the show, well, that's easy. Just share this episode on social media and tell all your like-minded friends that they should listen. Your support is very much appreciated. And until next time, take care of each other, hug your loved ones tight, and let us know if you see anything weird.
Keep Canada Weird is written, hosted, and produced by the Nighttime Podcast.
And now to our viewers and listeners everywhere, good night.
Do you want to make an ad?
New Coca-Cola Oreo flavored soda pop. Just when you think that you didn't enjoy the taste of someone's backwash in your pop after they ate an Oreo cookie, turns out you actually do. Buy this.